agenda. Sean, do you have any business to discuss before we call up the agenda?
The only thing is that, nope, not tonight. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, it appears that everyone is here from the planning board, all 7 members. So we'll just say that for the record. First item on the agenda is a sketch plan review. It's at 4152 Albany Street. It's a proposed conservation subdivision. The proposal is to subdivide 109.84 acres into 8 residential lots, which will result in a density of 0.07 units per acre. The site is zoned single-family residential, and this is a proposed conservation subdivision. Sean, do you have anything to say about this before we turn it over to the applicant?
Nope. I'm just going to bring the drawing up for everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, and who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant to start?
I'll start, Peter. Nick
Okay.
Costa.
Hi, Nick.
Good evening. Nick Costa from Advanced Engineering and Surveying. And as you mentioned, and as you can see it on the screen currently, the site is located at 4152 Albany Street. All of its frontage is along Albany Street, and it's composed of 109.84 acres. The site does have a substantial amount of wetlands that traverse the site. It's also bisected by a National Grid NIMO parcel, and the CSX is adjacent to the southwest corner of the parcel. The parcel has been owned by Mark Nemeth and his family for, I think it's been approximately 40 years. And it is zoned single-family residential. It's also located in the Conservation Overlay District. The applicant, Jeff Ferraro, is proposing to develop the site with 8 single-family residential lots, each having frontage along Albany Street, and each having access from Albany Street. The Albany Street along this frontage does provide municipal services. There is a water line a water main that's located on the same side of the street, and there's also sanitary sewer that's located along the generally the center line of the road of Albany Street, and it can easily be accessed to serve the single-family proposed lots. We did have a DCC meeting back in March 11th, and there was discussion at that time about the provision of the sanitary sewer and the water services to the site. Stormwater would be managed on each lot, and there would not be any new roads for these new homes. It would be all off of Albany Street. The parcel is located within the conservation overlay, so it does have to show that it's preserving or deed restricting 40% of its of the parcel. And we do have on the next exhibit, Sean, if you could go to it, up in the towards the top right hand corner, there is a conservation. It's just a summary of the conservation overlay data. The parcel is 109.8 acres. It has 55 acres of wetland, 29 acres, almost 30 acres of wetland buffer. So the total constrained lands is 84.82. The total usable is 25 acres, a little more than 25 acres. So the required conserved area is about 10 acres. And we're proposing to conserve 10.7 acres on lot 7. Those 10.7 acres are shown to be deed restricted on lot number 7. So we are in the process of reaching out to the Pine Bush, Mr. Gifford, to get their input, and we have the DCC minutes, and we're looking for the planning board to give us their thoughts on this, and we hope to address those comments and bring it back for a concept approval.
Okay, this is being reviewed by our town designated engineer, Barton and LaJudas. I think we have Chuck Voss here from Barton and LaJudas. Chuck, I know you haven't completed your formal review, as this is only sketch plan, but could you give us your thoughts so far?
Sure, Peter. We were at the DCC meeting on March 11th, so we've been with the project since the beginning. We've also taken a look at the site. Nick was accurate in basically describing, how they want to break the site up. Each individual lot, for the most part, lots 1 through 6, just a matter of size, are a little bit more than half an acre in size. Excuse me. So they're compatible with the surrounding lots that are out there, residential lots. But again, as Nick mentioned, it's a single family residential district. Conservation zoning overlays in play here. His initial analysis of that conservation overlay appears to be correct. For the most part, the site, as Nick mentioned, as you can see on the site plan, has extensive wetlands. These are DEC wetlands. They do have a mandatory buffer around them, which really severely prohibits any growth or development near them. There are several Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation properties that cross through this. There's a CSX parcel further to the south that also binds the site in. So really the only way to get to the site primarily is from Albany Street. As you can see, the layout of lots 1 through 6 pretty much conforms with what's occurring in that area of Albany Street. There's an aerial photo. I don't know if you have that, Sean, but it shows the existing conditions. It shows similar residential parcels on the west side, or I should say the east side of Albany Street. So the use, from a use standpoint, is certainly consistent with what's out there. It appears, again, lot 7, a little bit further to the north, will have access itself out onto Omni Street through that little keyhole parcel that connects out. It's my understanding, talking with Nick and certainly at the DCC, that any housing building that's going to be constructed on lot 7 will be probably pretty close to that frontage. Certainly won't be much further back, because then you start to infringe on the water course buffer that's in that area, as well as the wetland buffer. So it would be consistent. Any house lot and any location of any house on lot 7 would certainly be consistent with what's nearby. And you can see there's a couple residential lots just to the north that sit a little further back. The other thing we discussed certainly with Nick, and I had a conversation with him last week, was access to lots 1 through 6. I know there was concern by the board for potential additional curb cuts on Albany Street being so close together. So Nick was going to take a look at either shared parking or potentially the thought for some other access, potential access road for that. And I'll let Nick certainly speak to that, or let the board address that with Nick directly, but it was a suggestion that was made. Other than that, it appears to be, consistent use of the conservation subdivision clause and certainly the single family clause. We're pleased to see so many wetland complexes in one area be preserved. I think that's certainly a win. Nick did mention at one point the potential for maybe preserving some of the parcels in the back for a mitigation receiving area for the town at some point down the road. Again, something to think about. Would be a great use for this kind of a parcel for something like that. So, but we certainly look forward to seeing what Nick produces on the next round and taking a look a little bit more closer. So.
Okay, we'll take comment from the board and questions. We'll go down the line. Paul Rosano?
Hey, Peter.
Yes.
Peter, this is Vic Campanero.
Yes.
You mind if I say a few words?
No, sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So, as some of the board members probably know I represented Mr. Nemeth for many, many years. And as Nick alluded to a few minutes ago, the Nemeth and Vince Segarra families have co-owned this property since 1980 and paid probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in real property taxes on this property for the last 40 years. What Nick didn't tell you is that throughout the years of ownership, they've explored selling this property to various municipal entities, state of New York, DEC, what have you. None of that ever came to fruition. And this, as I'm looking at the aerial view here, you can see that directly across the street from these proposed lots are homes that are, there's several of them in there, maybe 8 or 10. And obviously each one of those homes have access to Albany Street. This, and Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, appears to be the only reasonable development of this property due to the constrained lands and the wetlands. And my client took title to it from the Vince Segarra family about a year and a half ago, because the property used to be about 200 acres. And the other 100-acre plus or minus parcel is frontage on Morris Street. Long story short is, obviously this whole sale is contingent upon the proposed purchaser and getting these residential lots approved. So I just thought the board should have some historical background on this, for how long it's been in the family and how long they've been trying to develop it. So that's all I have to say for now. I'm sorry you would then call on Mr. Rosano to speak.
Sure. No, thank you. Thank you for those historical comments and so forth. Paul, do you have any comments or questions?
Just a couple of small ones right at this point. You mentioned you were going to reach out to Neil Gifford from the Pine Bush. So that question comes up to me is any of this in the actual preserve study area? Pine Bush Preserve, the Pine Bush study area, or neither?
I believe it is, because I believe that the study area goes all the way out to Central Avenue. If I'm
Nick, you're correct. Nick, you're correct. It does go all the way
Right.
to Central.
Right. So I believe it's within the study area. I don't know what the status of, within that study areas, there are areas identified as more valuable than other. So I don't know where this falls within that criteria.
Well, the reason why I bring it up, Nick, was, and I've been doing this a long time, and Victor will attest to that. No area of the town is in the Pine Bush Preserve, only in the Pine Bush study area.
That's correct.
And I want to make sure that's on the record, because this gets confusing all the time. The other part of it is, do we have to deed restrict at the rear of these lots, even though it's just in the study area, with signage or fencing or something along those lines? Just put that in, just think about that, and
Okay.
maybe we'll go by, do that at some other time.
Right. And as we develop the conversation with Neil, there's going to be, I'm sure that there's going to be some recommendations that they're going to be making for the development of this parcel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Chip?
None right now.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, the curb cuts coming out on Albany Street, that does concern me a little bit. I know the speed limit on the street is 30 miles an hour, maybe. And you constantly see the Colonie police out there issuing tickets for going quite a bit faster, because it's a shortcut to get over to 155 and out that way. And people do fly down through there. Is there any way that maybe you could do something like put a service road in there where those 6 lots could come out and they would all go out one way? You know what I'm saying? They come out on this, like we got over on Route 7. Come out.
We can take a closer look as we develop the design. The only issue is that those lots have a limitation at the rear where the 100-foot buffer comes in and impacts those lots quite a bit. If we start putting in another, 20-foot wide drive to serve all these lots, it reduces the construction area or the building envelope.
Understand, but you can take a look at that.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That it, Lou?
And how,
No, sorry.
lot number 7,
Yes.
does that go through any of wetlands or that where you go into it? That's
No.
quite a ways back.
Yes, that's correct. The wetlands are pretty far back from there. There's 175 feet, from the front right of way to the rear of the lots that are adjacent to it. You can see it, it's 175 feet, and the wetlands don't start, well, the buffer starts probably another 125 feet from there.
Can you
And the
move,
wetlands-
it, Sean? So we can see what he's talking?
Yeah, and Lou, this is Chuck. There's a protected water course buffer in there as well that limits where that housing can go.
Yes, that's right.
Because it looks like it goes right through it.
Yes, it does. That's the line right there.
Is there a possibility of coming in through Carnival Street for that lot?
We don't have frontage on Carnival. If you could pull that down, Sean. No, down.
Up the other way,
Up.
up.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, we don't have access to Carnival. We have no frontage along Carnival.
Well, that right where that last house is, I don't know who owns it. I know it's private property. It looks like Albany County owns some of it.
Oh, they own quite a bit. Albany County Land Bank owns quite a bit of it. But where we have 1089 written, that's a private lot.
Is there something in that one? Because when I went down there, I went down to the end where the turnaround is, because it's a dead end street,
Yes.
and it dead ends right into the forest, the wooded area.
Sean, if you bring up the aerial photo, it might show that better.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so you see that last house there,
Yes.
Lou? That lot is owned by those folks.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. You got to go out Albany Street because you don't own the property back there.
Right, and we would have to come through the wetlands to get access to that rear portion. Right, that dark green is wetlands.
Right. Okay. All right.
It's not developable. It can't come out on the Carnival.
No,
All right. That's it.
Susan?
I don't have any problems with the curb cuts, given the limited number of lots. It's about 6. I don't know where the 7th one is coming out. There's many more on the other side. We have far worse in other places. So I really don't have a problem with it. And also anyone who purchases is going to know that their driveway is they're going to have to access Albany Street in order to get out or into their home. So I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Thank you. Craig?
I agree with both Susan and Lou, actually. Take a look at it, but in the end, I don't have a problem with the curb cuts. And there's already a number of them there, and it is 30 miles an hour in theory. Couple of other questions. It looked like some of those lots, Nick, are already encroaching into the wetlands, at least according to not this map, but the last one you had up, Sean. Is that just a mapping thing, or is that what's actually proposed?
well, with the size, we have, these lots are, at least they're right now shown as being about 20, anywhere from 24 to 26,000, or 23 to 26,000 square feet. So there is a little sliver of wetlands that are behind lot number 3, lot number 4, and lot
Yep.
number 5, maybe, right in that area. Perfect, Sean. Thank you.
Yep.
And that also has the 100-foot buffer from that wetland that comes in. And that's what I was saying before, is that the actual building envelope is going to have to be, further to the east. So where we show the typical lot, that little rectangle that's shown and it's labeled typical lot, there isn't much room for that building to be pushed to the west. It has to stay pretty close to the front setback.
Okay, I just wondered why you were given that, why you were including the wetlands actually into the lot. That's all.
Well, Craig,
And whether-
you're right. We'll probably adjust the lot area there to take the wetlands out. We won't take the 100-foot buffer out, but we'll take the wetlands there. It's just a matter of where that landed. And we can adjust that.
Okay, I mean, it's not an issue. I was just curious.
Yep.
And then on who are the homeowners on lots 7 and 8 ultimately going to own all of this, or is the plan to deed this land to someone else, all this wetlands area?
Right now, we're showing it being owned by lot 7 and 8. But as we develop conversations with the Pine Bush, we'll have to see how that goes. There may be some requests there, Craig.
Okay, all right. And then there's no further development that can take place on 7 or 8, right? The plan is not, there is no way to split those down the road to additional, make 3 out of 2 kind of a thing, right?
No, I think once you do conservation subdivision and you have some deed restrictions, I think that's, you can't go to the zoning board of appeals and make a case for, doing 2 keyhole lots, let's say.
Okay, all right, I'm good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Chief Hyder?
Yeah, just a couple things. I think you can adjust the curb cuts with requiring the developer to do little turnarounds, driveways,
Yes.
so that, the homeowner has the option of backing into the turnaround and pulling
That's
back
correct.
on Omni
Yes.
Street.
Yeah.
The only thing, and this is something I don't know if we can handle or not, and Victor, I'm sure you're aware, when they built those 2 houses on Maxwell Road, they had to get into Maxwell to get the services. And within a year, the depression started, and before you know it, you had major depressions in a newly paved Maxwell Road. Now, this is showing where you're gonna have 8 entries into Omni Street to get to the sewer. I just don't know what can be done to hold developer responsible 3, 4, 5 years down the road in order to make sure that that's taken care of.
Yeah, that's a good point. We discussed that at the DCC, and what was agreed to was that all the laterals will be done with the, when the first, they'll be done all at once, even though the lots are not going to be all constructed at once. The laterals will be pulled all at once, and it'll be repaved. The entire lane frontage will be repaved at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only 2 things I have.
Okay, thank you. I prefer to consolidate driveways if possible. So if we could take a look at that, I understand all the reasons why it may not be a good idea here, but if we could at least just take a harder look at that. Just because there's driveways on the other side doesn't mean, those houses I think were built a while ago. And I view this as a thoroughfare. So anyway, that's my own personal opinion. I think everything else has been said as far as I'm concerned. I don't know.
If I could
Chuck
just
or
say
anybody-
one- I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. If I could just.
No,
say one
please
thing
go ahead. I'm done. Yep.
at that point. The only problem that I saw in my former career is shared driveways were shared problems. And
Yeah, I
everybody
know.
was friendly until the point that they weren't friendly. And the next thing you know, you had 8 people or 6 people in this case trying to share a common driveway, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Based
And
upon
when you
what,
start, and when you start talking about shared driveways, we would be inconsistent from what we did last week also. So we should stay pretty consistent with that, if you remember.
if I may add to that, could I share with His Honor the litigation that I've got going now with my shared driveway problems? It's unbelievable. I mean, the chief is right. It's tough, and they fight and fight and fight over this stuff, and it's biblical, believe me.
I
Anyway,
agree.
that's all.
You're only creating problems.
And I think that's what you brought up last week, Victor, wasn't it? The same thing. If I remember correctly. That's why we.
Which
put
one
the
was that?
grass
I
strip
think?
down the middle.
On Dunn's back, the two lots that were set
Yeah.
off with the common driveways side by side. And I was definitely against that.
I'm opposed to shared driveways. It just creates problems.
From a lawyer's perspective, it does for sure. Creates business, but no problems.
I don't need any more of that business.
Chuck, is there anything you'd like to add, having heard what the board members have to say?
No, I think everybody, the comments, I kept track of everybody's comments. They're certainly consistent, I think, with what, Nick was discussing early on, and he'll take a look, and we'll certainly assist him as he ponders, how to deal with the driveway situation and go from there. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have one more item on the agenda for concept. It's 450 Old Niskayuna Road, Phillips Medical Systems, Phase 2. My daytime job is with the Albany County Airport Authority, and they're gonna have some interaction, I think, on this. So I am recusing myself from consideration of this from the planning board perspective. So Craig, if you don't mind, can you just walk it through? I'm gonna drop out of the meeting.
As I am also, Peter, going to recuse myself too.
Okay, we'll still have 5 board members there, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank
Have a good
you.
night, everyone.
Yeah,
Yep.
you too.
Sean, is there anything that you want to speak to before we turn it over to the applicant?
We could have the applicant go through this.
Okay.
Yep, let me pull it up for him.
Thanks, Sean. Sean, I think with me is John Riley, the architect. I believe he was supposed to sign on. And
I see him in
also,
here.
is he there, Sean?
Yeah, I see his name in here.
Okay. And also Dan Lawson from Phillips.
He's also here as well.
Okay. So this should be familiar to the board because we were in front of the board early last year, and then back in September to get final site plan approval for the 36,000 square feet that are under construction, which on this aerial view that you're looking at is the portion that's sandwiched between the new 37,000 square feet and the main large building that's at the back of the photo or the rendering. So this is phase 2 that Phillips is looking to construct at 450 Old Niskayuna Road. And Dan Lawson from Phillips, if he can hear me, I'd like to have him introduce him and have him speak on behalf of Phillips. Dan, can you hear me?
Let me see if he's muted. All right, I think Dan and John were also on the phone.
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, Dan, are you there?
Yep. Hi, Nick. Thank you. My name's Dan Lawson. I am the Regional Program Manager for Design and Construction at Phillips. So I cover anywhere from the East Coast to the Mississippi River for design and construction projects. And we're excited to continue to grow in Latham. This additional footprint will fill out our buildable size at this lot and add quite a bit more of capacity to our manufacturing process here. This factory is the only place in the world that we make the magnet for MRIs. And we have a new magnet to market that is one of a kind in the marketplace and does not off-gas helium. So it's been well received in the market. And these additions, phase 1 and this now phase 2, will continue our growth and provide a global product out of Latham. So we're very excited about the continued growth. The other part of the project that won't necessarily show up at this point or in these plans that we wanted to highlight, we're also working with National Grid on a substantial power upgrade to the building and bringing a direct service to the site, which will help alleviate not only some constraints we have today, but also some constraints in that part of the grid. So we're trying to both connect the completion of phase 2 and the upgrade of that service. And then on phase 1, just quick update, we're in good shape to open in the middle of May. We've had some discussion with the building department on certificate of occupancy. And Phillips, overall, we just really want to say thank you to you guys for being creative and keeping things going right now and being able to help us through this downtime for you guys, but essential for us as a healthcare provider in a medical device company. So very excited to grow. I'll let Nick go through the technical portions of it. Again, no architectural awards being won on this project. Another blue box kind of off the blue box, but we'll continue the quality of site care and landscaping and also growing in Latham and continue to hire. So very excited again, and thank you for your time tonight. Nick, I'll let you go through the civil portion.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So we're here to present the concept plan that we prepared for the phase 2 portion of the building addition. And that's shown on this rendering that was done. And
Did we just lose Nick?
I think we did.
John Riley still on?
Yeah, I'm here, Nick. Dan.
Do you want to walk through the front end until Nick comes back?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, basically, as Nick said, we've got 37,000 square feet of a blue shell, okay, for manufacture that we're putting up. On the view you're looking at here, we're not adding any parking. What we're doing is building on our last addition, which was a similar size, just slightly smaller, 36,000 square feet. And we're handling delivery and shipping basically from the existing entrances on the rear. To the road, the access road on the left is being reconfigured, but it's how all the, if you're familiar with the air cargo facility, that's the access to it. We're adding a second gate in that area, bringing it around to feed this area, and in doing so, we are also relocating a water line from Latham. And that's where Peter alluded to in terms of our involvement with the airport authority, in the sense that we have to extend the existing easement we have there to add the second gate. And we also have to get an easement for the airport to extend our water line onto some of their property as well. But we've had conversations with them, and they appear to be in favor of working with us, and hopefully we'll be moving that along quickly. On the next slide here, on the site plan, oops, sorry, just lost that here. Okay, looks like I've lost the site plan for some reason. On the site plan, we've got we're adding parking to the front of the building. We're, as Dan said, we're pretty much maxing out the site itself. While it appears there's a lot of green area, and there is, we're certainly, I think we're about 42% green here. It's mostly wetland area. So that what we're doing is expanding the existing parking. And in the center right here, where I don't know if you can see where there's new parking, right in here. That's basically all being added, as well as some parking why I'm all over the place, as well as some parking near the front entrance, expanding altogether by about 100 spots. They need that in terms of the new manufacturing jobs that are being brought in and some engineering jobs as well. We do meet all the requirements, but we're pretty much maxing out the site in terms of parking as well. Storm drainage is being handled all through the existing system into a series of lagoons. I believe there's 5 of them right now that handle the existing storm water. We are reconfiguring some of it, and we are staying out of the wetlands area altogether. And let's see, I can't quite see some of Nick's statistics on here, but that pretty much does it, other than in the rear here, which would be on the south side. We are also adding a small building, about 5,000 square feet, slightly smaller. And that's what's called a cold magnet storage building. And that's it's just part of the process where magnets are taken in and they are charged and kept cold. So this is a non-occupied building. It's one where they bring 40 or so compressors and magnets in and just keep them cool for an extended period of time until they're ready to be shipped out. And let's see, that's all on the parking area there. We're taking away a little bit of parking to accommodate that, but we're adding quite a bit more in other areas. I don't think that's a concern to anyone, but we'll address it if it is. Are there any questions?
You came in mumbled a little bit on the parking. Do you absolutely need all that parking?
Yes, we do. Actually, to meet the zoning code, we need it. But based on our projection, okay, of the number of employees that are going to be in on any one given shift, plus some shift changeover, which is always an issue, we absolutely need it.
Okay.
I was surprised myself that we needed to expand it that much.
Sean, can you highlight exactly where the new parking area is on the map that you've got up right now?
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
There's also a little bit shown right in front of the office building itself. We're extending it around the circle.
Yeah, there's about 10 spaces.
Spots. Oh, next. Okay, back, good.
Sorry, I somehow I got muted. I have no idea how that happened, but it did happen, and I just realized it. Sorry, guys.
Great presentation, though, Nick.
So, John, Nick, do you have anything else to add, or should we turn this over to our TDE?
The only Craig, the only thing that, and I don't know if this came through when I thought I was speaking to you, but I wasn't. I mentioned that at the rear of the site, we have had discussions with the airport authority, who have been very gracious and understanding, and are on board to help Phillips achieve their goal of this addition.
Yeah, I think John covered that.
Okay, good. Thank you, John.
Okay, this project has been reviewed by our town designated engineer. In this case, it is Joe Grasso from CHA. Joe, can you please let us know your comments?
Sure thing, Craig. So we did issue a concept site plan review letter dated April 22nd, which should be in all the planning board members' packets. And I'll go through some of the more major comments, although, because this project site has just gone through the phase 1 addition, which didn't, shake out any significant issues from a site planning perspective, nor does this proposed project as well. The first comment is really just regarding how the application is presented. We would prefer that it not be referred to as phase 2, just to avoid confusion, but show the phase 1 as constructed or under construction, and then to just show this as a new standalone project. And these comments can be, addressed as the plans get progressed, assuming to a preliminary and final site plan design level. The second comment is regarding the improvements to lands that are controlled by the Omni County Airport Authority. Obviously, approval from them is going to be required for the work on their property as well as the changes to the water line easement. I did talk to John Leclerc, who is the airport engineer, and Nick, he mentioned that you've been in touch with him.
Yes.
He did have some comments that he just wants to make sure get addressed. The most significant comment that I heard from him was that he would like a line of sight analysis from the tower, which is to the southwest of here, looking through the addition towards the near corner of the air cargo building. He really wants to be able to see the whole plane, which is always parked. I think it's like a 787, which is always parked, on the airport side of the air cargo building. But he said, worst case would be to look at the corner of the air cargo building. So if you can provide a cross section for that, he said he can get you the elevation of the tower to run that line of sight diagram for. And when you submit it to him, we'd like to get copied on it so we can follow along with those issues. The other thing is just in terms of the gates, he would like some clarity regarding, the gates that you're looking to do. One is going to be relocated, and then you're going to be adding a second one. And the way it's shown on your site plan, it's a little bit unclear that the controlled access part of the airport is actually to the left, right where the arrow is. And it's not clear the way it's shown on the plan. That fence line up there actually comes across the road there and then runs along their property line. So your two curb cuts are basically in the unrestricted part of the airport property, which, I think requires clarification. And then it makes more sense regarding the configuration of the curb cuts that all the traffic, any emergency access that would be coming to your site or to those rear loading docks would be coming from the unrestricted portion of the airport property.
Right.
Something just on the base mapping, when you get into the more detailed plans, if you can show the underlying improvements that are going to be impacted by your proposed work, so we can evaluate that to make sure that the correct scope of improvements are done. From a stormwater perspective, Nick was the engineer for phase one, which obviously required, DEC stormwater compliance. Nick's, an expert at the regulations.
Thanks, Joe.
And I'm confident that he'll be able to apply those same standards to the phase two work. This is a tough site from a stormwater management perspective. There's some unique arrangements on site, but Nick is well versed in them, and I'm sure he can, make a fully compliant design for these other improvements. Our comment number 5 was regarding the new parking area. We would look for, more rigorous parking data on the final site plans. The amount that's going to be impacted by the new work, the number of new spaces to be constructed, parking totals, the required number of accessible spaces based on that total, and then obviously your proposed number of accessible spaces. So 2% of the spaces are required to be handicapped accessible, so we think that it may be 12 based on the 553 total parking count, but we noticed that the narrative had only indicated 9 spaces, so we'd like some clarification there. Comment number 7 was just about some more rigorous site statistics being provided regarding all the building square footages. We don't see any issue with zoning compliance, but we would just like it accurately reflected as part of the site plan, so that if future changes are made and parking counts need to be clarified or confirmed, we've got that data to go by. you know, the cold storage building, you know, it's kind of in a unique location because it's out in an area that's currently parking. So you've got some dead end parking proposed and the pavement right up to it. So we'd look for some clarification around the cold storage building, you know, some better articulation of the site plan improvements regarding access. There's also you know, those 5 features there to the side of the cold storage. We couldn't tell exactly what those are or how they dovetail in with the site plan, but you know, so if we can get some more detail and you know, articulation as to what's going on with those. Nick, do you want to speak to what those boxes are there?
You know, I think that they're storage bins, so they're gonna remain. I think that not 5, but I think 2 or 3 already exist, Joe. So you know, and we will get some additional information with regards to those and you know, how often they move, or are they there permanently?
Exactly. Those are the kind of questions. And how is access going to be maintained? And are we going to be, you know, losing more parking than what we show? So those are things that we would just look for additional detail. There's some overhead doors on the cold storage building, or cold magnet storage, sorry, building. That we want to make sure that you've got clear access to those. Pedestrian connections to all your parking areas. You know, not always shown at the concept level, but as we get into final plans, we'll look to make sure that you've got good accessible routes. Let's see. You know, because of the work near the airport property, we've got the standard FAA notification. You know, this site is a little bit unique because it's got the aeronautical impact notification required for, you know, the building improvements, but as well as the temporary construction, you know, the crane work that's going to take place. And there is navigation easement on the property, so you got to check your clearances from that as well. And John Leclerc, you know, from the airport can help with any of that data that you might need. The project site is in the airport area, GIS study area. So, you know, mitigation of cumulative impacts with a finding statement is required. I know CDTC did a estimate of the transportation mitigation fees. I think it was about $46,000. Which will mitigate the additional traffic from the project site. We don't expect, you know, based on where this site is located and the strength of the local roadway network, we're not expecting any localized impacts from this, you know, relatively minor expansion. And then from a seeker standpoint, it's an unlisted action. They have provided a short AAF, and we've got some just minor technical items that we would like clarified on that short AAF, and we would expect that the planning board would be lead agent, and they would make a secret determination when the project came back for preliminary and final site plan review. So, you know, nothing major, no showstoppers that we see right now, just a lot of cleanup, you know, and you know, good job on the site planning so far. So that's where we stand.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Before we turn it over to the board, just a final check for the record. Sean, are there any members of the public looking to speak on this project?
No, nobody from the public registered, and I don't see any that's joined.
Okay, thank you. Chief?
He was out.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Susan?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Lou?
Great job, guys. Other than that, no comments at this time.
Thank you, Lou.
Chip?
Sounds like Joe covered mostly everything I had a question about.
Okay. Paul?
Just one piece. Sean, could you zero in on the southwest side of the main building for me? Okay, that's good. Is there any note in the file about fire access? Usually, I know it's too late now, but usually with the commercial building, they look for 360 degrees, and I know they talk about sprinkling. Was there any ever talk about that when this project was moving on, because you got a whole area that's pretty wide, pretty tall. And it looks like if there was anything going on in that corner of the building or back of the building, they would have a pretty tough time dragging line there. Was there any note to file or anything on that?
Hey, Paul, this is Joe Grasso. I can speak to that. It was a discussion, obviously, at the DCC meeting. Fire services felt comfortable with the level of access provided on the plan. Obviously, that rear access, through the airport is really important to the whole backside of the building. I think they feel like with strong access, paved access to three sides of the various buildings is adequate. They do typically look for that fourth side to have a flat strip of ground there along that side of the building, which I think Nick has already built into the plan. So Nick, any more to add from those conversations during the DCC?
No, I was looking, Joe, I have to look, there is a water main, the water main loops right around the building. And I was just looking on the plan to see if there was a hydrant back there, but I don't see one. But I think you're right, though, the area is flat, over on that side. And I think as long as it was accessible from three sides, Joe didn't have any comments on that. Joe Bizignano didn't have any comments on it.
Nick, on the site plan, can you show me the closest fire hydrant to that area of the building?
Yeah, the closest one, Sean, if you don't mind going over to the, so there's one over here where the loading docks are. If you go straight out from the loading docks up to the left-hand corner, you just went by it. Come back down, Sean. Yeah, it's right at the top. That's a hydrant. That dark spot right there by that. Yeah, right above the hand there, right there. There's a hydrant. And then if you pull up, Sean, there's another hydrant down. Come back down, Sean. There's a hydrant by. Hold it. There's a benchmark right there, and then there's a hydrant over in this. Is this a hydrant right here? Can't tell. I thought there was another hydrant near the magnet storage, the proposed magnet storage building. Oh, hold on. It's right here. It's right in the right above, right in the middle of this paved area right here. Looks like there's a hydrant that's shown. It's at the very end of a water line. I don't know if you can see it. Right in the smack in the middle of the screen. There's a easement, and then there's a water line. There's a hydrant symbol right above that.
Sean, follow along the water line.
Yeah, come to the right. Yeah, more towards the middle of the screen. Right there, right above that. I believe that's an existing hydrant. Yeah, that right there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. It's just as hard when you're doing this from a computer.
I know.
Without site plans, it's okay. I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't have anything to add either, other than I think it's a great project. We're excited, to see expansion. Well done. So with that, this is up for concept review tonight. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion and make sure and include all of Joe's comments with it, Joe Grasso's comments.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just lost video. So the project is approved for concept, and thank you.
Zach, you still there?
Very much.
Yep.
Any other?
Excuse me, can you call me tomorrow?
Will do.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
That's it for our.
Wait a minute, are we gonna have a meeting next week or not?
I'm gonna just check. I don't think we're going to. We're waiting on some other projects to move through, and I think that we're gonna push to May 12th. But we'll
Okay.
certainly let everybody know. We have it on the calendar, but we just need to look at one or two more things.
Okay,
Okay, all
Good
right.
job catching up.
be safe, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.